hear like ethics, I think of The Office and the let's get ethical.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, I can cut all that out and like keep the and saying, let's get ethical, ethical.
Is that how it should start? Let's just have it start with her singing. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to ABA Generalized. Today, we're going to talk about boundaries and ethics. Boundaries can often get very blurred during our time because we're in the house multiple times a week. We've become kind of part of the family when we're coming out to the house. So, kind of start things off, Erica and I were talking this week about how we both were told that we couldn't use the client's bathroom in a home setting. So it makes it kind of difficult because obviously sometimes you can be there for like multiple hours and sometimes you have to pee. So I don't know, Erica, if you want to kind of touch on that and to get us started.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting because coming from, I feel like I learned this years ago when I first became an RBT, and I was told you cannot go into the client's house if you're not working in the home to use the bathroom. And I was riding a van to and from the client's house to the school and from the school back with the client and spending the whole day with the client. But I would be like chugging my water because I'm so thirsty from the whole day, and then be like, oh my gosh, I have a 45-minute drive home from the client. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, I might pee myself. And there were some instances where I had to go inside anyways and get signatures because that's the program that we were using. And I realized that it's okay if I have to pee every once in a while, right? Like I'm not going to use it every single time, but if it's an emergency, like I'm going to use it. I also find it interesting that G and I are kind of like the only ones that have encountered that, where Anne was saying that she didn't, but like I still to this day, like even if I was told by my supervisor, like currently, it's okay, you can use the client's bathroom. I'm like, no.
You've been punished for it.
I literally, like, I think that's what it is. Like I was punished, or like I was told, like, this is a clear rule. This is how you keep those boundaries. You don't use their water. You don't use their toilet paper, right? So I'm going to go to Starbucks and I'm going to buy myself a coffee, and I'm also going to use their bathroom, or I'm going to go pump up gas and I'm going to run into the bathroom real fast, but that's something that I encountered. I think that it's just so yeah, I also found it strange when my technicians were doing it here. And I was like, hold up, what do you mean you're going to the bathroom? Like, what? Like,
yeah, my new company as well. Like it was never like mentioned, like no one even like talked about that. Like when you go into home settings, like obviously other things were discussed, but like that was never a thing. So I don't know if it was just like a supervisor or like the past company, I don't know, but it has not been a thing ever since I left like our previous company. So
yeah, it's so weird. Like I remember long time ago,
when the dinosaurs roamed the world.
Not that long ago. Listen, I'm not that much older than you.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I remember being in a meeting. I was an RBT, or I couldn't have been an assistant yet because that was during COVID, and it was an in-person like company meeting. And then this came up, and like I never thought of it. Like going to the bathroom is a bodily function. I'm gonna go if I have to go. And then someone said like, oh, like if I have to go during a session, I'll run to the Wawa. This is a Tri-County amazing convenience store gas station that I truly miss.
And that my dog's named after, by the way, one of my dogs.
Yeah. You don't go to the dog Wawa, you go to the convenience store Wawa. And they go to the bathroom, or they bring their own toilet roll. Like, and I was like, oh my God, do I need to think about this? Like, and then things change when you're pregnant. You pee a whole lot more. So all that's out the window. Like, I gotta go to the bathroom. May I use your bathroom? And like, they're not gonna say no. So that was just my experience.
I know, like, I think for anybody, like, just having that open conversation, like, early on when you have, like, a home client of just, like, hey, look, what would you prefer me do? Like, I know I had a client previously in the home setting that I just had to open that dialogue with mom of like, hey, you know, when I have to use the bathroom, like, do you want me to tell you? Like, because usually she was upstairs while we were having session downstairs. So she just wanted to be notified if I was like stepping out to go to the bathroom. Like, you know, I could use theirs, but she just wanted to like be able to watch the kid so like he didn't go get into anything because it was a little goofball and he would just go do his own thing. So, or he'd scream outside the bathroom door, but that's a different story. Waiting for me to get out. But yeah, so I just like opening that dialogue with the parents, especially with like bathroom use of just like, hey, obviously bodily functions are gonna happen. Like,
Right.
what do you prefer? Like, do you want me to let you know, or do you want me to like, do you not want me to use your bathroom? Like, whatever that family prefers for the session.
I do have a question.
I always thought it was, oh, what?
I can hold my question.
I was gonna say, I feel like it's more of it's a waste of time if you have to go to the bathroom to leave, go to the bathroom and then come back. Like you're cutting, like, do you have to stop the session? Like, how does that work?
Technically would have to stop and or pause the session. Like it's unethical to be billing for that time because you're not with the client.
Right. Like you're not billing to be with the client in that moment. Like obviously if you're in the house and you run to pee for like 5 seconds, like you can still bill because you're in the home and you're about to like, it's under that 8-minute thing. Right. And you're also not taking like 15 minutes out of your day to go to the bathroom. Well, one would hope. And, you know, I think, yeah, like you have to stop your billing in order to do that. And that cuts into your pay, like your hours, your clients' learning opportunities. Like there could have been so many opportunities to teach a kid if you have to run out to the bathroom to go like drive somewhere at least. I don't know.
Erica, what was your question?
Oh yeah. So my question, I mean, I held it like I hold my pee. So that was kind of like where I was going with my question was, is your stamina to hold your like bladder larger now? Like, because, okay, I know that you both had babies. You both had babies. So it's very different, but like, I have not had a child yet. I will leave it at that yet. I'm not pregnant. Nowhere near it.
I was gonna say, do you have something to tell us?
This would not be the place to tell you, first of all.
Why
not? Anyways, so that's not it. So no, but like seriously, I feel like my stamina to hold my bladder, and think about it like pre-pregnancy if you can, like to hold your bladder. Gee, like you just have a tiny bladder then. But I could like hold it. The funny part is I can hold my bladder longer if I'm going from client to client to client than I would be able to if I was on a road trip. So like Scott and I will drive.
I agree with that.
And I don't know why I can like hold my bladder for hours between clients.
You know that you can't go on a road trip. You can.
Well, and you're on the go. You're constant. Like if you're on a road trip, you're just sitting there. Like, you're still driving from client to client, but your mind is distracted.
That's true. Yeah, because I'm just sitting there. I'm passenger princess, to be honest. And it's fine. And you know, it is what it is. But when I'm driving like on a road trip, that's like I'm like, oh my gosh, like I just drank my Stanley. Like I can't. I have to pee.
It's a mental thing of
not the Stanley.
It's a mental thing though, because you know when you're driving from client to client, like I don't have time. I have to get somewhere right now, and I know I can't go once I get there. Like your mind is like you can't think about it. But when you're on a road trip, like on the turnpike or whatever, again, don't.
Yeah. You're like, where's the next rest stop? I gotta go.
They have all those signs. It's like next rest stop in 10 miles or whatever. And you're like, all right, I got about 10 minutes and I'm going pee. So I do think it's like a mental thing, not like a bodily function.
I guess. And that also goes to like eating on the road, right? Like I can eat while I drive, but like I can't.
Oh my God. Gee, I don't know if you've done this yet, but I have pumped and eaten my lunch and driven all at the same time. Yep. And at stop signs, I would pour my milk in the milk bags. Yes. You get very good at multitasking.
Well, she just pumped gas recently. So she did a double pump there.
Sure did.
But no, like, I mean, we can't eat in client sessions. That's not appropriate unless you are working on eat like the client's also eating at the same exact
Yeah,
time and
that's
working on not sharing food and boundaries there, right? Like I've done that before. But like you can't just sit
Again,
there in a session.
yeah. Again, when I was pregnant, especially the second time around, I would like quick eat like a bar or something because if I didn't eat every few hours, I would feel like I was gonna vomit. So it's like, would you rather have me vomit or just like shove some food in my mouth real quick?
But I think the difference is like that's like a little snack. Like you're not having a whole meal. Like that does take like
Oh no.
a minute, if that, to like.
Because I've had BCBAs sit in my session when I was in RBT and eat a full on meal and be like, I didn't have any time to eat today. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just gonna sit here running these tacting targets. That's cool. But like just like little things that like, what if the client was allergic to that, right? Like, or you know, what if they're like, oh my gosh, I want to bite too. Well, you're not sharing the food and you're not doing it at the same exact time. You're not running a program that's similar. So
That also goes, what you just said goes back to like more boundaries too, of like I know like a big thing in my company now is like we have a clinic setting. So like a lot of our sessions get run in the clinic. And we have been told time and time again, you are not sharing food with the clients. And we do have a client that unfortunately only has packed a few snacks and like he is hungry, you know, by the end of his session. And if you eat in front of him, he will literally just sit there and have a full blown tantrum because he's requesting, he's using his words, he's, you know, doing everything he was told to do, but you're restricting him from having it because it's your food. So it's like you're also crossing boundaries there of like, A, you're probably causing more behaviors in some settings, and B, like as you just said, like allergies, like some of our kiddos are so young that if they're not exposed to that at home, like yeah, maybe it hasn't been a known allergy yet because they're not exposed to it at home, but now you're exposing them to that and there could be a reaction. And especially if you're in the clinic setting, then we have to call the ambulance, then we got to call your parent. Then it becomes a lot of paperwork.
well, and that also makes me think back to like last episode where Lyra like is gluten, dairy, and all these other things free, right? Like when she would go into the trash to like, this is horrible. She would go into the trash to pick out the foods, right? And it wasn't gluten free or dairy free, and it would be like normal foods. Cookies, pretzels, chips, you name it, she probably found it. But like that also has a huge other factor. Like I wouldn't eat my lunch with her unless like we were both sitting on opposite sides working on not like once again, it's a program that we're running. So that's where it was like different, right? And we worked on that quite often. But yeah, going back, I guess a little bit, like just keeping that boundary for sure and making sure that you're keeping on you know, what you're currently working on or, you know, something.
Yeah, client time is like important. Like that's what they're prescribed to receive. And like you want to use, you know, as much of it as possible to run programming and, you know, help them out with whatever they need help with. Like you can't be taking time for yourself and you're eating and whatever, like you're on the clock. Like you got to be helping that client out. And your drive is, as we just said, you multitask on your drive. And if that's all you have for the day, then you better eat on the way and pack a lunch that you're able to eat one-handed.
Yeah, definitely don't drive and eat with a fork. Don't do that.
I do that.
Or a spoon. Do you know how many times I try to bring a yogurt with me?
Don't. No.
Erica,
No.
that's not safe.
Okay. So I've only done it a couple times and it was when I'm really like in a bind and I'm like, I am starving. If I don't eat something right this instant, then I'm going to probably crash and burn. Because
why don't you bring something you don't need a fork or a spoon for?
Okay. So you both know about my soup weeks, first of all.
Oh, okay. Put it in like a mug so you can drink it.
So yeah, which is done. But like then you have contents in it too that you want to eat. So like you gotta dip the spoon and you
You
So-
gotta puree it.
So for our listeners, my husband and I, we do soup weeks and salad weeks. And we've been doing this for, oh gosh, 2.5 years, almost 3
Long as I've
years.
known you.
Yeah, we've done it for a really long time. We did it before our wedding, which was 2021.
As
No.
long as I've known you, you've done soup and salad.
Yeah, it's probably very possible during 2020, 2019 we started it. But anyways, besides the point, we love it and it's easy. So you just like, make a bunch of it and then you bring it for lunch for work and you get a thermos and you just drink it and then
No,
use
you
a
use a
spoon.
spoon. That's what this whole conversation is.
It happens, okay? I'm a safe driver. I'm a safe driver.
We're going back to boundaries. We're done.
That's not what happened the other week, was it?
No, I was just
All right.
concentrating on my Starbucks, okay?
Oh
What
my
if
God.
it's Starbucks?
All right. Anyway,
Sorry, too soon.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
wow, we digress. Anyway, and have you had any situations in your RBT and or BCBA time that either boundaries were blurred or you had issues with like a client and boundaries?
Yeah, I think, I think just in general, I think it's harder in RBTs because you're in the homes a lot longer than BCBAs are. And you're the one that has that rapport with the family, usually better than the BCBA. That's how it should be, I think. So the boundaries are gonna get, there's
They're gonna
a
like
timeline and you have
mesh.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard because we can grow very attached to the families just like the families grow attached to us. I had an instance where working in a home, the family didn't speak English at all, didn't understand it, and would offer water to anyone who would be working in the home. And it was just understood that you just take it. At that point, it was like trying to give it back was more disrespectful. So we were just like, just take it. It's, they're offering it, they're not leaving until you take it and smile and nod, and then yeah. So that was just like an understood, like if you're on this case, you're going to be offered water. We tried denying it, it doesn't work.
And sometimes like that can cause more issues. Like if you were to decline it, like for example, I had a similar situation of that, but it was like tea. And like, again, culturally, like when people enter their home, like they offer them tea, and again, tried to deny it, tried to explain that like, this isn't ethical for us to accept this, like, no, thank you. And it was actually causing more issues with the family because they like were getting culturally offended that we were not accepting this tea that they were offering us. And so that's where you kind of have to talk to your BCBA or if you're a BCBA, like talk to your supervisor of like, hey, listen, like this is causing more issues and like damaging the rapport of the family to not accept it. And again, it's something as simple as a water bottle or tea or, something that's not breaking the bank of, they're not offering us something crazy. It is something simple of let's just accept it so we can get on with the session and the child can be successful with us in the house. And again, we can keep that rapport with the family. Sometimes, as I said, it's better to just do it and keep the rapport than destroy the whole relationship over something that it's not that serious.
Right. And I think I hope this is for like all people that are working towards getting their BCBAs and go in their master's degree, because at least for me, I don't know about for you, Anne, but we had a cultural competence course. And we had to focus, and it was, I don't know if it was on the counseling side or if it was on the ABA side. That's why I say I'm not 100%. But yeah, I think that it's important because that's something that we really heavily focused on too, is like no matter what the therapy you're providing, just remember the people that you're providing this to have a background. Whether it is something that they just feel like if you don't take it, it's offensive, or if it's their cultural needs to have to give that to you, which I've encountered that too. I went into a client's home many times. We were starting to figure out where we were going to have services and ended up being in the preschool. But for the time being of like the assessment and rapport building for me, before we got a technician, I was the BCBA, and the parent would constantly be like, can I get you something? Do you want anything to drink? Do you want anything to eat? And I'd be like, I'm so sorry. Like, no. But then I had to like take a step back and be like, listen, it's nothing like offensive. I sure hope you please do not take offense to this whatsoever. Like, we had a really good relationship, so I was able to have that open and honest conversation, and they felt bad after for like constantly asking. But I was like, listen, like, it's not a me thing. Like, this is my ethics. Like, I worked really hard to get where I am, that I don't want to break that, like, my personal ethics and morals as well. Like, if it was really going to hinder our relationship and I could feel that like that was going to be a problem, then I would have been like, oh yeah, no problem. Like, I'll accept it, because I want that rapport and that build like that trust, right? But it didn't cause any issues. It actually made us stronger.
For a lot of families, I feel like once we explain why we're not accepting it and like what like our ethics code is and you know all of that good stuff, like they're like, oh no, that makes a lot of sense. Like, yeah, I am sorry for like offering you that. Like, I didn't know that that was even a thing. Because like that kind of ties into the holidays, because our ethics code says that we can only accept handmade gifts, so like a card that was made by the client or a gift under $10. And until that's like explained to a lot of the parents, which the last two companies that I've been at, like the company will just send an email to all of the parents around the holidays that like, just a reminder, this is our ethics code. They don't even like, they won't even think twice about it. They're just like, oh, I'm gonna get you a $25 Starbucks gift card or whatever. And like, you're like, no, sorry, I can't.
Well, yeah, it's
that.
Yeah, they do it, think about parents, they do that for the teachers. So like we get lumped into that category, and teachers and even other like speech OT, they don't have, I can't remember if they have like a specific ethics code. I remember doing like a report on like different areas and their ethics codes, and not one is as strict as ours.
I believe it
says anything about gift giving. I mean, maybe they've updated it, but like there have been times where I'm in schools and there's like, cookies were made. But I don't know, does that fall under handmade?
So I guess, okay, so I would count that under handmade, because if the client is helping make it, then that counts as handmade. And I know that like a lot of families will fight that and say like, no, like so-and-so helped me make this. They did do this as like a building skill opportunity. So of course, like, I'm not going to say no to that, but like, I will flat out, like, if I'm getting handed something, I'm like, the client helped, right? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, well, if you're saying yes and shoving it in my face, then fine. But like, as long as they are actually homemade and not like store-bought type things, then I'm like, yeah, that's fine. You're making
and
like
with
hundreds of
that,
them
like,
anyways.
And it's also like, what are you modeling for the client too? Like, they're seeing this exchange, and if it's denied, that could potentially be a form of a punishment, decrease them to give gifts to others. Do you know what I mean? So like that was also explained to me too, like, if we want this to be a learning moment, like have the client like give it to you themselves.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. And I've had a lot of parents who will like instruct the kiddo to like hand me the card or hand me like the cookie or whatever the case may be, like practice that exchange and that acceptance like between the client and the provider.
And the client not eating the cookie on the way to give it to you, which I've experienced a few times. And then parents
on it as they're handing it to you.
Like, why am I giving this away? I want it.
I love our kids so much. I guess that also like goes into like it, it's been interesting. So there was one instance where, and I cannot remember for the life of me, we were trying to figure this out, and G remembers it somehow, but like I was offered an iPad at one point and I had to deny it, obviously, because iPads are not cheap, one, and two, they're not under $10, and three, no.
No.
It's a hard pass. I literally cannot remember for the life of me, but like I was definitely offered that because I think it was because of our data collection system and I was having issues with like finding all the programs within my phone. Or I think it was like the Wi-Fi was weird and it was like, well, if I can connect it to the school, then it's not a problem. Probably all of the above. And the parent was trying to justify it. And I was like,
Yeah.
no. So I didn't accept that. I actually went out and bought one, I think, right after they had. I was like, no, I'll get my own. It's fine. And I did. But you know, it's very hard during the holidays because still like at least they want to just thank us in some manner, right? And that's when we're prompting, like, you know, as long as it's made by the client or it's just a handwritten card of some sort. But Anne, have you experienced anything like that? Like with gifts?
Not in that sense. I've had more boundary issues.
Go on.
So boundaries, yeah, need boundaries. And it's, again, really hard to draw that line when you're in homes. And especially if you're, you know, if it's not a new client, like they're used to the old BCBA's ways or the old RBT's ways, and you get new staff, and then so you have to rebuild that rapport, right? And so this happened to me where, like, going forward, I was told, like, you know, you need to make firm boundaries with this specific client. So I said, okay. So like right from the get-go, I was like, you know, you can text me, but I'm not going to respond after 5. I'm not going to respond on weekends. You know, unless it's an emergency. There was never an emergency, but I would get several texts, and then again the following morning if I didn't respond as soon as I woke up. And it's like, you know, I have kids, I have to get them ready out the door, you know, I have to get myself ready. And sometimes it's even like, maybe I have to check with the supervisor on how to respond to, type of thing. So it's like, I'm not responding for a reason. I'm not ignoring you, but I want to make sure I have all the information before going forward.
Yeah, like
and
they have a question you don't know the answer to. Like sometimes you do have to like ask somebody else, a supervisor, a coworker, whatever the case may be. Like, I don't have an answer for you right now.
Yeah, and it was an issue with the family. It was more of an issue when, so this can kind of go into another topic of companies and rules about giving out your number. Obviously, as a BCBA, like parents need a phone number to contact you. With BTs or RBTs, maybe not so much. I guess it depends on the setup of the company, but we didn't have a policy on whether or not the techs had to give parents their numbers. Of course, you know, they had emails, and so they had a way to communicate that way, or to communicate through me or the BCBA, you know. And that became an issue because the BT was not comfortable with giving their number. They had to get like a Google number and share that, which is this, you know, it's the same thing, but they, you know, I don't really know how the Google voice mail, whatever it is, works. But it was just that additional boundary, and that wasn't, the family they didn't like it. So both of us ended up getting removed from that case, just because and that's okay too, though, because if parents aren't okay with something, they do have the right to remove you. And if it's just that wasn't the reason that was said, but
yeah,
it's okay. and whatever, it is what it is. But for my mental health, for the BT's mental health, like that needs to be respected. Even if there's not a policy saying they can or cannot. Now here, there's, and I guess like all like different companies, and G, I think you can speak to this, where like the BTs are not allowed to give numbers out, and if they do, there is a consequence. There's a negative consequence to that, and I've seen that too, where it's like, and it wasn't like a boundary that was pushed. It was something that seemed necessary. But
No,
yeah, I mean,
right. Like, cause I definitely experienced, like, so I've experienced both ends. So I've worked for 2 different ABA companies. The first one I worked like with everyone here. I definitely had my number given to all of the parents. I was the one texting them like, hey, I can't make it out today, or hey, I'm running late. Like that was all on me to communicate as the RBT to the parents. So like that was what I was very used to. Like I would even like coordinate my schedule with them. So like obviously some days like President's Day is coming up or whatever, like the kids wouldn't have school. So like, hey, are we having a session? Are we moving it to the home setting? Are we, whatever the case may be, like I was the one coordinating all of that as the technician. But the current company that I'm at, that is absolutely not allowed. The RBTs are not allowed to give their numbers to parents in any situation. The BCBAs are communicating with the parent, and then we also have like a scheduling person who communicates any scheduling needs or cancellations, or even if I were to be running late, like that comes from our scheduler, not from me. We did have an instance of one of my coworkers gave her number to a parent. I think the parent asked for it. I don't really know all of the details of the story, but now she was removed from the case because that was then considered a dual relationship with the parent and the technician. And the company was like, absolutely not. And they replaced her with, they like kind of switched technicians, off, like took her off and put another one on. Whatever.
That's so interesting.
That makes me wonder if something in those companies, because that seems like that's definitely not the only place that's happening, right? So, and I do like the idea of having a scheduler. It takes a whole lot of work off of the BCBA and the RBT.
I did that job.
However,
just say.
But it makes me wonder if like something did happen and then those companies are like, okay, we need to figure out a solution and how to make sure this doesn't happen again. It's kind of like to prevent that further dual relationship.
With my company that I'm at right now, we are using, so like we use our own numbers. Like I have a Google Voice number, so this way it's at least a boundary for me. So then like also like if I am on vacation or something, it's not getting filtered into like all my personal texts. So I'm just trying to keep that boundary of like, it's 10 p.m. and I'm getting text messages and I'm looking at, I accidentally click on it to look at, and then like, this was also before iPhones allowed the unread feature, right? So I wanted to make sure that no matter what, when I worked for this company, that I had that boundary, because at the company that I worked for in between when I was moving, they gave us our own personal cell phones that had a different number. So I really enjoyed having that, disconnect from work. And so I really just carried that over. But I also, the company that I'm at right now is working on doing something where we have like a messenger, and it's just between the BCBA and the RBT right now. But I think that they're trying to have it also where the parent comes in next, because I've seen like parent names come up. I'm like, this is interesting. But like then everyone has to be able to use this application and this messenger, and which is great.
Is it like a group chat?
Almost. It's kind of like, how can I kind of like relate it? I guess it's like if you had Teams on your phone.
Okay.
So like Microsoft Teams almost, is what I would kind of like compare it to. as like its own little application, but like we can also see it like on our dashboard, like on the website.
Yeah.
And so if you open it up on the website and it's not like a separate application on your computer or anything, it's literally, I mean, there is one that I use too, but you know, it's on the web browser. It's a little pop-up guy. And then also my phone has an application for it. So like they want us to communicate through that a little bit more, especially for like HIPAA reasons. I think that also has a lot to do with it, is like the boundary of like the HIPAA and like making sure that you're following those guidelines as well, because we're not saying names in text messages, or at least you're not supposed to. I've had to have a couple conversations with people being like, listen, like if you're not the parent, don't say the name. Like
Yeah.
the parent's going to say the name all they want, and that's completely fine. But like we cannot for HIPAA purposes. I know it's weird, but like like you see the parent saying the name multiple times throughout a text thread, but if we say the name, then that's technically like, what if you accidentally send that to the wrong person, right? At least you have the initials in there and it's not breaking any sort of compliance. So that's why I do what I do in terms of like the boundary of like the Google Voice. And also in addition to that, like I said, our company's trying to use a different way of having us all communicate.
Yeah. I just think the biggest like takeaway from all of this, I just feel like you have to make sure that you're checking with your company to see what their guidelines are, and then also then making sure you're following the BACB for like just the overall behavior analysts guidelines and ethics codes and all of that good stuff. So I think as long as you're very well known in both of those aspects, like you're good to go. And obviously if you ever have questions, like as an RBT, if I have any questions about that, like I go to my BCBA, and I know like BCBA's, like I'm sure you guys can agree or disagree, like you guys all have a supervisor that you can also go to with like the same thing, like, hey, my RBT just said this, or hey, I just had this happen while I was in a home setting, and kind of have somebody to like double check to make sure like we're all good. So yeah, just making sure after all of this, everything we've said, just making sure, as I said, you're checking with the company and also checking with the BACB guidelines.
Yes.
And if you ever have any questions too, you can always email the board. Like if you're confused about anything, email the board. They'll tell you what's going on and how to handle it. Or, you know, we have an ethics committee in our company. So like I can always email our ethics committee being like, hey, question, is this okay?
That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's who we have to also run like any punishment procedures by. Obviously, I haven't had to deal with that yet, but yeah, ethics committee.
Alrighty. Well, I don't know. I feel like we covered a lot.
We did.
So
Let us know what your
Ethics
bladder. Let us know what your bladder stamina is.
mine hasn't changed. I don't have that thing where it's like I sneeze and I pee.
G's like, I do.
You got to do that pelvic floor, whatever stuff.
Yeah.
That's a whole other podcast. I feel.
we
That's
don't
not-
deal with that stuff.
I'm sure you can do like a task analysis on it.
We're done. Tell these people where they can contact us and see our stuff.
What?
You said tell these people where they can contact us and see our stuff.
Oh.
Instagram, YouTube.
If you want to know more about pelvic floor therapy, go to-
Not our stuff.
Wrong podcast. Try again.
Who are you people?
Our email is aba.generalized.podcast@gmail.
Start over. Start
Figure
over.
it out. Please email us for any, not anything.
We're about to get fired.
And
You can't
get it
fire me.
together.
No, you're about to get fired for wrapping this up. Erica's gonna have so much editing to do. Start over.
If you have any suggestions on what you want us to oh my god, get it together. Email aba.generalize.podcast@gmail.com. Instagram @aba_generalize_the_pod. YouTube ABA Generalized. TikTok, I can't figure this shit out. ABA Generalized. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe.
We're gonna take a look at TikTok. It will get figured out.
I hope everyone enjoyed all this. Bye.
ABA Generalized, the podcast, is not providing professional advice. Please seek a professional in your area for specific advice and support.